Sarah isn't here yet.
Oh yeah, Sarah's not here yet. Sarah will be here momentarily. I was looking at my other screen, didn't see it. Hey everyone, welcome to a Time of Courage chat. While we all gather here, at the very start of this, right at the last second, we all kind of got on here. I think it's been a late night for some of us. I know it was for me, but we wanted to get together. Well, I was eating sushi, and it turns out if you eat a lot of sushi and then go to bed immediately after, your stomach hurts. So I've just been processing that and trying to figure out why I made such a bad decision. But regardless, we're here.
Processing both mentally and physically, right?
Yes. I ate 6 rolls of sushi, which is unacceptable as an adult, apparently. Even the waitress kind of looked at me like, what? You want all those are all for you? And I'm like, yes, and my wife will have whatever she's had.
Yeah. I do that too. And then all the rice settles and you're just like, oh, okay.
Like,
Sorry.
This isn't normal. Sarah, I apologize. I actually hit go live and I didn't realize you were not here.
Awesome. I hope everybody heard me yell, that's as good as it's going to get, as I was coming down the stairs.
We did not, unfortunately. That would have been a great
all right,
time.
well, excellent.
I'm on my first cup of coffee. I don't know about you all, but I'm processing the morning still. So I might be a little bit slow with my responses. But A Time of Courage by John Gwynne is the reason why we're here today. And Of Blood and Bone is the sequel trilogy to The Faithful and the Fallen. And as Philip shows, and I should have brought my book down. Patrick has all of the books stacked up next to him.
It's a tower.
Actually, so impressive. They are good.
Two of the same
Patrick wanted to put us all to shame by having them all showing.
Actually, I'm just lazy to pull this out of.
What are some of the ones at the bottom? There's like
yeah, what do you got there, man? I don't have
Shadow of the Gods.
Shadow of the Gods.
No, the two right above it that look like they're the same book.
Yeah.
The two orange ones. I'm pointing. You can't see where I'm pointing, but yeah, those two.
So this is A Time of Courage. I got 2 of them because I bought one from Ghostboro, right? But the publisher also sent one to me, so I got 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thought he was gonna be late to the party. No. In fact, we were late to the party.
No one was actually late.
No, we were all
late.
We all slid in at perfect timing.
We might be late, but who's not here?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Alan.
Yeah, we do need to address the elephant in the room, or the Alan in the room. He's not in the room. Alan has ditched us on this. He actually he's part of the Katashim, and it's sad. You know?
I think I actually got him burning the book at one point.
He officially
Jimmy, I heard that he got a grappling hook so that he could be like Lycos, and he wanted to steal your nice copies of A Song of Ice and Fire with his grappling hook.
Well, that is true, actually. And I think Alan represents in a lot of ways on BookTube Lycos. I think that he represents
It's an apt comparison.
He's gonna love seeing this. He'll be.
These guys are mocking me.
I'm just telling him.
Well, it's his own fault for standing us up at the 11th hour.
Yes,
I know.
But now we can't hear his creepy laugh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We don't get to hear the Cole laugh, which is a major step down.
Sarah, we're gonna ask you to step up in Alan's place and to do that.
Yeah.
I'll call in Andrew. I'll tell him, you're my tech guy. You can now come in and do the creepy laugh too.
Yes, I think that'll be perfect. So Alan hates Truth and Courage, and he hates the Banished Lands and hates us. So he's not here today, unfortunately. But we moved on, and he's fired, and he doesn't exist to me anymore. So
that's true. He already kicked me. I'm not his friend anymore. He broke off our friendship once I read Empire of the Vampire. So that's probably why he's not here. He couldn't stand to be on the same stream.
Well,
did you unfollow each other off Instagram and everything?
I guess we have to now.
I mean, it has to be official.
Yeah, these
are
are
official until the unfollow start.
This is BookTube headlines here, folks. I thought we were talking Time of Courage, but this is good enough for fantasy news. Who watches fantasy news? All right. So, anyways, so Time of Courage by John Gwynne. I guess we should go around and kind of talk about it, because this is the conclusion of Blood and Bone. I know we're going to have some dissenting opinions. Cough, Alex. But I'm excited.
Better.
I'm glad to hear it.
You guys would not have liked me on A Time of Blood if I was on that chat.
Oh man, I was ready to drive down to where you live. I mean, I was going to just Truth and Courage, throwing my books at your windows and everything else.
You would probably yell it better than the audible narrator does.
Oh my gosh. truth and courage. Yeah.
Right.
Did any of us listen to it on Audible other than me and Alex?
I didn't.
I listened to with pretty much all of these books. I've split time with Audible and reading it, and yeah, I mean, just for those unaware, if you do the Audible narration for this, he's great most of the time, but whenever somebody screams, it's as if he's in a room trying to pretend to scream and not wake up his kids. So when it gets to a line, he just goes, truth and courage.
Yeah,
and he's whispering right now.
And he does such a good job other than that, I think. I think it's a very solid narration. But yeah, you know, those moments that we love from Gwynne, the big battle roar and the speeches, he just does it in this whisper yell.
Mm-hmm.
And it totally takes me out of it. Like, I just turned off the audiobook and started reading. I was like, okay, I can't do this. I need to hear like loud, boisterous voices in my head, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm going to keep my thoughts pretty short and then we'll pass it around here. But I thought Of Time of Courage is a clear-cut winner among the three. I think it's the best book that he wrote. I wish all three were actually this long because I think he got to do a lot of good things with the characters. But definitely my favorite of the three, one of my favorite books John Gwynne's ever written, and I really enjoyed the last battle scene. I'll kick it over to you, Patrick, and then we'll just go down in a circle here.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jimmy on this one. I mean, this actually won my favorite book of the year last year. So yeah, I absolutely love A Time of Courage. And in my opinion, I think John Gwynne is always better when he's writing in a bigger book because A Time of Dread and A Time of Blood, both of them are actually short. I forgot the title. Yeah, but both of A Time of Dread and A Time of Blood are actually quite short, especially when it comes to Gwynne's books. These books are massive, but yeah. So A Time of Courage is my favorite book. There is a lot of heartwarming moments, and some moments really made me emotional. And the last battle scene was amazing.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. Sarah, what do you think?
I really liked it. I think it's the best of these three. I don't know how I rank it against the Faithful and the Fallen series. I think, to me, I really liked it because it felt like the end of all of them together as a 7-book series. So it definitely made me the most emotional out of all of them because everything was ending at the end of this book. So I agree that the battle at the ending was amazing. It was just a very high energy, very intense book. So you wanted to keep reading very quickly, and it felt like the end of an era at the end of the book.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I also look at it as like kind of a 7-book series in a lot of ways, even though the two are very different. Abby, what did you think?
I mean, it was like what everyone has said. It's definitely my favorite of the trilogy, and I think what John Gwynne really excels at his finales based on Wrath and A Time of Courage, that I think his beginnings of books can be weaker and then he builds and gets stronger as the series goes on. So Wrath and A Time of Courage being some of my favorites of his. And I think, as Sarah touched on, the battle scene at the end was epic, just epic. And yeah, it definitely hit me emotionally, this book.
Yeah, I think A Time of Courage in a lot of ways was that emotional bridge. Like I had some moments in the first two. I think I talked about those in the first 2 streams, but this one really brought it home for me and kind of had that classic John Gwynne finale feel. I agree with you. I think Wrath is a very good way of wrapping up things. I mean, he did an excellent job there, and to be able to do it again, I think that shows that is probably a strength and a skill that John has in his toolbox, and that we can count on in anything that he works on in the future, more than likely, which is always a good feeling when you're investing so much time into these series. So
and I feel the same. I think with Shadow of God, I think that series as well is going to build and get better as it goes along.
Yeah, I was kind of giving people the forewarning, like they read it and there's their first Gwynne book and they're like, it was good, but I felt like it was a lot of setup, and I'm like, just wait, we'll get there. I promise.
It's okay.
That's kind of how they are.
Yeah,
but, I mean, you can definitely see from Faithful and Fallen to this series that his writing does get better. I think overall for me, this story is less impactful than the quartet of Faithful and the Fallen, which is why I struggled so much to get into the first 2 books, just because I couldn't help but constantly be like, I just want Faithful and the Fallen. I just like that more.
Right.
So it kind of always felt like a tier or 2 down at times of just this is kind of doing similar things, and it's there's some interesting aspects. But for me, I mean, A Time of Courage is clearly the best of the 3. I was very lukewarm on A Time of Dread, and a of Blood, and then A Time of Blood, I was just kind of like, it's not really changing. And then A Time of Courage, about halfway through or so, I was still kind of feeling that. And then John Gwynne did his John Gwynne thing and make it a lot better in the last half. Because I mean, yeah, his books are best when you have everybody like in one big epic battle and you're bouncing from POV to POV and you're getting the full feel of everything happening and kind of all coming together. And I think if I had to rank this book amongst like all of the ones that I've read, it would probably sit just behind Ruin and Wrath for me, because it's clearly better than Malice. It's better than Valor, and it's definitely better than A Time of Dread and Time of Blood. But for me, like Ruin and Wrath just hit on so many points for me personally that it was just more impactful. But this is clearly one of his best 3 of the 7 books that he's written in this series specifically. And I think, without spoiling anything yet, like it's still open enough that like if he wanted to come back to the Banished Lands, it would probably look a little bit different, but he still definitely could. And I'm sure we could talk about, how the book ends. But yeah, I like this one overall a lot more than I did getting into it, which was really making me sad and mad because I love John Gwynne and his books. So as I was reading these, I was like, why am I not caring? Like, it was kind of bothering me. But by the end of it, I did like them.
Did you feel like maybe if you had taken a little bit more time in between the two
Probably.
series? Yeah. See, I had waited almost over a year, I think it was. And I do think that had an impact on me.
I think mine was a couple of months, maybe. It wasn't a very long time. And I'm coming off of all of those characters that I loved as Faithful and the Fallen, and just I couldn't help but constantly compare the two. And it just like probably.
I'm glad I had like 6 months break between the two. Because although you could view it as like 7 books, I do like having that separation and knowing that I had that big gap between them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not necessarily, a bad, it's not obvious that you should take that break. Right. So maybe we can do a service here for people who have read Faithful and the Fallen. If you're watching this and you're curious about Blood and Bone or whatnot, or maybe if you do feel a little bit indifferent towards it, I do think a break does help the distinction, because the Faithful and the Fallen cast of characters is among some of my favorite. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite cast ever, to be honest. And I think it has something special about it that I think that John builds on in A Blood and Bone, but there is something just uniquely profound about the way John's able to capture people with Faithful and the Fallen. I have recommended that series to people who are not fantasy readers, like my best friend Andrew. And he texted me at the end of Ruin, and he's like, dude, he's like, if you ever talk to John Gwynne, tell him I hate him, because this dude is just messing up my heart. Like, he is so in, and he's saying, I'm going to read A Blood and Bone as soon as I'm done. I'm like, just wait, dude. It's like, just give it like a year, because he's so in love with Maquin and so in love with Corbin's story and everything. And I'm like, you just have to relax and you got to give it some time, because I do think that it could be possibly detrimental to the enjoyment of the sequel series, which I'm not sure what that actually says. You know what I mean? Because like, you shouldn't have to wait, I guess.
I mean, it's going to vary from person to person. I think for me, I would have enjoyed it more had I waited, but I mean, it's my own fault, right? I read them, there are a few things that I've read so far that like is upon release, because I'm catching up to so many things. And I'm just like, oh, here's all the books and just read them. But what about you?
I think some series do works better like that. I mean, there are some series that works better for you to binge them, and there are some that you should take a break between books. For example, Wheel of Time. Oh God. Yeah.
Okay. How long is the break, Patrick? Are you ready to come back?
Okay, let's move on from that one.
Well, Philip, why don't you chat about your feelings?
Philip, how you doing?
All right. I'm doing great. Thanks. It's wonderful to be here with you guys. And I actually agree a lot with Alex. Alex said a couple things that I think that match my experience of the Banished Lands. Number one, John Gwynne, I think, gets better and better on a technical level. I mean, he's working on his craft, and you can really see that. So I think on a technical level, the A Blood and Bone trilogy shows some improvement over The Faithful and the Fallen. But I also agree with Alex in terms of the ranking. My favorite book in all of Banished Lands is Ruin. My second favorite is Wrath. And my third favorite is Time of Courage. So we agree exactly on that. But I also will say that my favorite character in all the Banished Lands is Drem. And maybe we can talk about favorite characters later, but he is my favorite character. and he's of course from the trilogy. So, but one thing I want to say that maybe not everybody would agree with, but for me, I think the A Blood and Bone trilogy actually added to my love for The Faithful and the Fallen, in the sense that it was incredibly nostalgic. It added to the nostalgia of The Faithful and the Fallen. I know a lot of people will say when they're reading A Blood and Bone that they feel they miss these characters from The Faithful and the Fallen. They miss Corbin and they miss, you know, Corlin, and they miss the gang that they got to know so well. And there are these nods, of course, 130 years later, there are nods to the characters who are gone. There are a few characters who are non-human who are still around. I found that these little mentions, for me, actually gave me a real sense of kind of very positive, almost a little bit melancholy, looking back at The Faithful and the Fallen and what happened there. So I think it's actually pretty clever how this trilogy increased my appreciation for The Faithful and the Fallen, and gave me I like that. I like a sense of history in my fantasy and layers. And so when you have in A Blood and Bone is you have a world that has layers now, because we have this previous series, The Faithful and the Fallen, and we have all these emotions tied to these previous books as well. So I really love it when the mentionings of Corbin happen in the trilogy in A Blood and Bone. And I love the little, you know, no spoilers here yet, but I love the little look backs that we get every now and then. So I think that that's a cool thing, how this trilogy increased my love for The Faithful and the Fallen and increased the nostalgia factor for me. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely clever, because usually when you jump into most fantasy series, like there's always a history, but it's like thousands of years ago, all of this stuff happened, which so The Faithful and the Fallen did that too. But now like having 100+ year jump, that is now part of history. It's not like Red Rising, for example, does a time jump between the two series, but it's like 10 years. So it's like, that's not like, it's just like recent past. It's not ancient history where people are talking about, hey, all your favorite characters that you like, they're all dead and gone. They're all history. Like they're part of the land's history, and there's, you know, armies and stuff that battle in their name, and they're looked fondly upon, and there's statues of them and stuff. It's definitely a great aspect of it.
Between the two series is what, 100 years, right? Isn't that the?
I think it's 130.
130?
Yeah, I would say a century is a very good place to start for a time jump, if I'm being honest, because one thing I really enjoy in A Song of Ice and Fire is that the Duncan Egg stuff happens 100 years. So you see like little, you know, Walter Frey like running around, and you're like, you know, it's just enough to where it doesn't feel super recent, but you can still feel it's the same world. You know, it's not that 1,000-year jump like Alex said. And I think that was for the benefit of A Blood and Bone to be about 100, 130 years, and knowing that people are starting to forget. They're starting to forget certain details, and some things are shrouded in mystery, but we get the rub. We get the rub as the reader saying, hey, you know what's up. Like you read the first one, right? You better read the first one. But I think it's rewarding. It does feel rewarding and oddly nostalgic. I think Philip hit that right on the head. At this point, I guess we'll go into spoilers. So I assume if you're here, you're probably here for spoilers. But we will dive into spoilers now. And I kind of want to kick it right back to Philip and talk about some of those callbacks and what you enjoyed and what made you feel nostalgic. Charles.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what sort of stirred me a little bit was there were several moments when in the newer characters visit the Order of the what is it, Bright Star?
Bright Star. Yeah.
Am I getting it right? Yeah. Okay. The Order of the Bright Star, their headquarters in Dun Saren, and I noticed that the statue of Corbin and Storm was a real focal point for that. And what you see there is you have characters like Byrne who live there, and they're the monuments there as well to the dead, to the fallen, and there is there's a sense of deep respect. There's a sense of real emotional impact. And then you have the characters in A Blood and Bone, like Sig, for example, who actually knew these people, and Baylor. You know, when they see these statues, the emotional impact is even greater because they knew Corbin. They were with him. And they had, or Michael, for example, when Michael sees the statue, wow.
Yeah.
And you see him there at respectfully kneeling at Corbin's grave and apologizing because he's overheard. So there's some just really wonderful emotional moments there as these characters are remembering the past. And some of them are characters who didn't live that past, but have had the stories passed on to them. And that's a very important theme in here as well, because you do have a kind of a alteration of history over where the Benelim are in charge in Drasil. They have a very different version where they've minimized Corbin's role, and they've maximized the role of the Benelim in the previous conflicts. So that was a very emotional moment. I also was kind of stirred by the discovery of Corlin's remains.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, that got
Corbin's
me.
sword, and that was really powerful.
Oh.
Oh, that's how she finished her life. Like when it first was mentioned that she just went off to avenge or to get his sword back and never came back, but Storm came back. I thought, oh no, what happened? And then later we found out that when they find that shack in the middle of the woods, that she lived. I mean, it was very melancholy for me to think that she finished out her life that way. But she obviously stayed busy. She had a hobby of collecting Kadashim hides.
It
fits.
So it's not like she gave in to despair or anything. Like we could see that she never would have done that. We know Corlin is
we know Corlin.
strong person. But that did grab me too, that particular moment. So I'm sure there are some others I'll let everybody else talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody wants to jump in, feel free. I guess because this is kind of an open end. I'm not sure because those really are the callbacks, right? I found them to be pretty emotional. And the Kadashim hides was pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't remember what book it is, but when we find out how Storm died, because didn't she die lying at Corbin's grave or something? Is that something? That part is so sad.
Yeah, that's this book. It's so sad.
It's like every sad YouTube video you see of the dog at their owner's headstone. I'm like, why would you write this into a book?
This kind of goes into like one of my main issues with this trilogy, though, is that like the more emotional parts outside of stuff with, and you're probably gonna hear my kids screaming in the background.
It's okay.
Other than Drem's emotional beats, the most emotional things for me in this trilogy were when they're talking about previous people. Like I was not attached to a lot of the cast of this one, so when those, like even Sig in book one, like when that happened, I was just like, all right, like just next page. Like, I didn't really care. And like when other characters, like I guess we're full spoilers, like when Bloodda gets taken down, I was just like, well, I mean that sucks. Like that's kind of a crappy thing for him to do.
I know. Me and Abby are like, no.
No.
What are you talking about? I was like, when I read that scene, I literally was like, no, I literally shouted out loud and woke my boyfriend up because I was so shocked by it. And he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, the book.
The book.
I was distraught by that. I even messaged John Gwynne saying, like, how dare you? And he was like, this emotional response is exactly what I wanted from you. It's the Holy Grail. And I was like, I'm hurting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a lot of those moments that, like, I guess should have been impactful emotionally just weren't for me throughout the trilogy. Which obviously I'm in the minority here for that, but it was mostly just like the Drem stuff. Because I feel like far and away he put his most effort into Drem, and like obviously there's reasons for that because who he's based off of, and just I felt like there was so much love and passion put into Drem as a character and everything that he went through, and then every other character I was just like, I will say, A Time of Courage turned me around on Riv. I did like her more in this book than I did not care for her at all up until this book. But yeah, I mean, so some of it hit, some of it didn't, but a lot of it I was just like, I was constantly in the back of my mind just thinking, this cast is just not as interesting as Faithful and Fallen.
Well, it's
like,
also not as vast,
I was
right?
like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot less of them. There's only 4 POVs, or I guess 5 at one point, or is it just 4?
I think it's 5 at one
And
point.
there was
In A Time of Courage, there's more.
Yeah.
Because they added, Gwyn added not only
You get
Friva,
Friva, and then you
but
get,
we also got,
Jin.
what's her name?
Jin.
Jin.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jin. Yeah.
Which Jin to me was just another like, I'm crazy. I'm going to kill everybody because he betrayed me. And I was just like, okay. And then Fritha the whole time was like, oh, I hate Drem. I'm going to kill everybody. I was just like, okay. It's like the villains just didn't interest me. Sorry.
Well, with Fritha at least, we do get some backstory gradually revealed about the betrayal of the Benalim, and so we I think she's given enough motive for me to feel slightly conflicted about her character, to think that she was used badly by Cole, and that had a tendency to traumatize people, and so her character I thought was important actually for what Gwynne was doing as far as complicating the whole morality. I think what you have in Blood and Bone is a slightly more complex, grayer, grittier morality, where you have the Benalim who can clearly act in evil ways. And so, I think Fritha has some understandable motives, at least. Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely gray when it comes to like the literal angels and demons that want to control everything, because the angels still think they're above everybody and that humans should worship them. So like they're clearly not thinking as people. I mean, when it comes to the people, like there still is a clear contrast of good versus evil, in the sense that like the Kadoshim just want to kind of kill everything, and the Benalim want to kill whoever gets in their way, but then like, we'll rule peacefully, just obey us. And Fritha's like, I want to raise demon babies. Like, okay. there's still a difference though.
Demon babies.
Yes. She's like making experiments.
Yeah, I actually liked her like little experiment stuff. It kind of gave me like an old school horror vibe in a lot of ways. Yeah, I enjoyed that
dungeon that she's.
Yeah, it was just like, what's going on here? I do think that this trilogy does a great job, and it also cultivates very well into the final battle of it having that horror undertone. I think, and Faithful of the Fallen had that a bit, but I think overall there was a lot more positivity and hope in Faithful of the Fallen, whereas the Blood and Bone at times got really, really bleak. And then
Faithful in the Fallen was much more of a human conflict, and this is like, well, now you've released angels and demons into the world, and now that's kind of like you have to fight the humans, but also figure out what you're doing with these winged beings that literally want to rule everybody.
Yeah, and I hate to always bring up A Song of Ice and Fire, but guys, it's
No, you
me.
don't.
It's me. Look at my walls. It is what it is. But it would be almost like, if the White Walkers came and the humans lost, and now they're trying to deal with these things, or even the Children of the Forest or whatever. You're right, Alex. They've opened up the Pandora's box, for lack of a better term, and now it's dealing with that on top of still dealing with humans, right? Dealing with people like Fritha and others. So it does add a new dynamic to the story, and I think that might be where some of the groundedness gets lost. I could see that, especially if you don't get super bought in on those things early. Such as the experiments and Kadoshim being back and all of this. I think that one of the most impactful moments for me personally was Blood is Death, and I think we should probably talk about it, because I remember I've read this about a year ago now, so it's been a while, but that's one thing that has stuck in my head, because I remember feeling like I knew Sig was going to die in book 1, and when it happened I was sad, but I really just feel like the Blood thing, I'm with you, Abby. It kind of caught me. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention. Maybe I was tired. I don't know what it was, but it caught me off guard. And I kind of put the book down. I was like, oh, damn. Like, he really did that, didn't he? I was kind of hoping maybe for more blood.
I was like, that didn't really happen. Like, I kept flipping backwards and forwards, like, no, wait, that actually happened.
So maybe I'll start with you, Abby, and then Sarah. I know you had a pretty visceral response whenever we were talking about it earlier, so I'd love to hear that. What made it impactful for you, and overall, what were your feelings about Blood's arc being completed here?
I think it wasn't necessarily his death. It was Cole's
how it happened.
And so if he had died and he'd been struck down by a Kadoshim, I think I wouldn't have liked it, but I'd have been like, okay, fine. But the whole betrayal was what made it so impactful for me. Am I like, how dare he do that? Like, how dare
even worse when he
do that?
When he's
like, why would he do this?
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't do this. How dare you accuse me of this? I'm ruling here, and everyone's like, wait, what? No, you can't just. You just killed
Absolutely
him.
not.
Everybody
And
hates
it's the way
liars.
I felt like he was safe, and then he wasn't, and I was like,
Has John Gwynne ever like convinced you that people are safe though?
safe in terms of like everyone else, you know, like.
I was kind of expecting maybe some sort of attempt at a Cole redemption arc at some point. I really thought maybe there would be an attempt at that, and it certainly didn't happen, did it?
No, he was gross the whole time.
So close.
So, Sarah, tell us why Cole is your favorite character.
Right. My favorite character
Yeah.
in all of fantasy, not just in John
dear
Gwynne's
God.
Wow, you really are taking the Alan approach.
Yeah.
I thought one of them was going to die because this immortal one half of a relationship, mortal other half of the relationship is such a common fantasy trope, like especially urban fantasy. Like that is a common thing to happen. And he did not touch on it at all. Like that, and I know they were in a war, so like that aspect of your relationship is probably not going to come up, but like there was no time put into it. And I feel like after reading many of his books, John Gwynne likes to have things tied up and he likes to have a future. And like that's part of what makes him so nice to read, is because you know that even if some people are going to die, you're kind of going to have this complete story at the end of the day. And I just could not see where he was going to take Bleda and Riv, because he had put so much into building up their relationship. That was a major part of both of their arcs, was them falling in love with each other. So I just had suspicions that they were not both going to make it through. And because I felt like a main character was going to die and he was not going to kill Drem. And so I was like, who's going to get it? Who's going to kick it?
It's the most sensible one, because otherwise you have like Riv has to complete her revenge.
Yeah.
And then she could have died, I guess. But like she could have died taking down Cole or something like that, maybe, or like taking down Azeroth. But it had to be one or the other, because they were all alive still.
Right? They were all alive
all
at
you
the
had killed
end.
was Sig. And Sig wasn't really like a huge POV to begin with. So you have the three, you have Bleda, Riv, and Drem through the entire trilogy surviving everything. Like, somebody's got to drop.
Yeah, but I was devastated. And Patrick, I read it and like was messaging Patrick at the same time, so he knew like the depth of my sadness. I cried so much that my daughter, this was the book that I talked about this when we did our like Shadow of the Gods chat. She came in and she asked me if, I don't remember what she called them, but she didn't say tear duct because she doesn't know that word. I think she called them like my tear holes. She's like, are your tear holes going to be broken now? I was like, are you okay, Mom? And now she still calls it the red book where people die.
I mean, it's not wrong.
It's not
Yeah.
So, Sarah, I'm glad to hear that we had a very similar reaction, unlike Alex, who was just heartless.
I'm dead inside.
Alex, are you okay, man? Or we need to talk? Or?
I have no idea.
It is interesting, though, and this is just a general reading thing, but like how you can have such a visceral reaction and then other people, they don't. And I think that's part of what makes books really special, is that different people connect different ways,
Well, again, for me, though, it's like for this trilogy specifically, because I cried many times in Faithful of the Fallen, like at least teared up when characters met their fate, especially in that last book. Like the entire last battle, I was just like, oh no, not him. Oh, hurt. Oh no. But then like by the time that I got to A Time of Courage, I still wasn't that invested. If Drem had died, I probably would have bawled. But like the other characters, I still wasn't quite there. So like when that happened, like it's written really well. Like Cole's a piece of trash. Like it totally makes sense for him to do that because he's garbage. So it was done really well. I didn't have the emotional attachment to the character, so it didn't hit for me. But it totally makes sense. If you love these characters, absolutely, that's going to be a gut-wrenching moment because of how it happens. Like he finally gets rid of Crazy, who's shooting him full of arrows and is going insane, and then Cole's just like.
He saves Cole. He could have just left him to die. Like he could have just let that happen.
Cole was the worst.
I'm going to kind of throw this back a little bit, I think, because we talked about in our first two chats, we said there wasn't that big baddie. We kind of remember we said there's not that Lycos. I'll tell you what, man, at the end of Time of Courage, I said, man, Cole might be the most dastardly MFer
because he's not outwardly evil. Like he is, but he's good at like hiding it.
We know as the reader.
Power,
yeah.
Right.
It's not like Lycos where he's just like, hi guys, I'm the bad guy. I'm gonna kill some people and run away.
Yes, he's not that
my gosh.
charismatic sociopath. That's what Cole is. He's that person who can draw you in with his words, and he looks nice, and he, has been able to seduce and abuse all of these women because clearly he has some of those outward characteristics. He is not, your
He's not
easily.
Azeroth.
Yeah, he's not
the
like
literal
your
devil.
He's the
exactly.
Ted Bundy of the Banished Lands.
Yes, he is the Ted Bundy of the Banished Lands.
He's the Ted Bundy of the Banished.
What?
Oh my god, that's
So we have our
actually
casting for the
hilarious.
movie. Zac Efron as Cole, if this ever comes out.
I could see it. Put some wings on the dude. He could probably deliver. Yeah, I mean,
Fanfic just got so weird.
yeah.
Sorry.
Zac Efron as Ted Bundy as Cole.
Yeah,
That's some very meta casting there. That was
this is how these live streams go. This is what we're here for.
Yeah, we've had a great time covering this. I think that John Gwynn's books kind of do bring people together in a lot of ways because whenever he does get that emotional response from you, you want to make sure that you're not losing your marbles and that other people are clicking with this as well. One thing I did say about Shadow of the Gods, because again, a lot of people's first John Gwynne book was Shadow of the Gods, and I heard people saying, I'm not super into the characters or yada, yada, yada. And I would say that I think that emotional investment up front does play into the fact that the ending and everything else in between can be hampered if you're not emotionally invested. Because I kind of like Alex was saying, like he felt super invested in the first, second one he didn't feel as invested, but he still thought it was a good book. It's just the fact that it didn't have that extra oomph for him. Patrick, you seem, I would say you're the highest person I've seen on a Blood and Bone. Do you think you could quantify what made this one so special and why you feel like it kind of lives up to that first series?
Well, for me, I mean, I think it's just a matter of level. So my reason is practically the same. It's because there's a lot of recollection to the characters of the Faithful and the Fallen. It's impossible for me to move on from those characters. And these characters, in a way, all of them are related to those characters. That alone were already enough for me to feel invested in these characters. And well, level of investment in characters are always different between readers, right? But unfortunately for me, it is a high one. Again, just from the beginning, I was already invested in all of them.
Yeah.
So that matters a lot. And there's one thing about the final battle here. This happens often in many series, but this is full spoilers, right? So Azeroth is the final boss, right? It's the final boss, and Azeroth didn't get killed in the Faithful and the Fallen. So I would have been pissed if, let's say, Drem single-handedly killed Azeroth. I would have been pissed because Corbin and all the other guys couldn't even kill Azeroth. And John Gwynne knows this. I even talked to him about this. I was so glad you didn't use only one or two characters to kill Azeroth because that would have pissed me off and it would have felt like cheating, in my opinion.
They were
because
already
Azeroth is
really strong, like beyond their means. So yeah, that would definitely be nonsense if he just like one-on-one's the devil.
His weakness was cheese, though.
Oh, thanks. I think that ran up and spoiled it in the first one. Huh?
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. So yeah, my point is that to defeat him, practically everyone joined to fight against him, and I think that's what made the final battle. Other than the 200 pages, I think in total, 200 pages of battle already great, and this one just made me even more satisfied.
Yeah, and definitely that final battle is something that we're going to talk about probably right now. The thing I will say about the final battle, I mean, obviously I thought it was super well written, very well paced. Really enjoyed all the impactful moments that happened throughout it. But the one thing I thought about towards the end of this, and I actually thought back to The Faithful and the Fallen, I think it's something I missed when I initially read it. And it's the fact that I always tell people that John Gwynne is very tropey. He's classical fantasy, a new twist, yada, yada, yada. I've said it a million times. But the one thing I think I missed is like Alex and Patrick here were kind of talking, and it's true. Like the enemy is so powerful. It would be cheesy, right, if one person beat it, but it's very much not the heroic fantasy that I end up pitching it as, because the hero is the group. The hero is the hope and the courage truth and courage that they find together, and it's only by coming together that they can actually defeat. When we think about Frodo and Sam coming together to destroy the ring, but it's on a bigger scale. Whenever you talk about Faithful and the Fallen and how many people have to come together to fight this grand evil. And as I sit here and think about all 7 books, that is something that John Gwynne kind of subverts in a way. He subverts that one person can do this. You always have to have people around you, and I think that that's one of the more encouraging and uplifting things from Of Blood and Bone, especially with Drem. I mean, I would agree with Alex 100%. I think Drem's the most emotionally attached character I have, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way because of how much care was put into the character. But them as a group, I was sold on the group at the end, I would say. Philip, what did you think of the last battle?
Well, first, I want to compliment you for working in the word cheesy there in your analysis.
Well done.
That was
Yeah,
actually the only reason why I even brought it all up. Yeah.
And I also want to agree with you because for me, Drem is the heart of this book, and I would say by far the most emotionally resonant moments for me had something to do with Drem. When he was united with his aunt, with Byrne, I think it was in the second book, in A Time of Blood. That was incredible. That moment of them embracing and him. He's one of the most nuanced characters I think that Gwynne has written. Drem is, but a lot of the emotional impact of his character has to do with the theme of friendship. And you have a character here who is, in some ways, a loner. He grows up with his father, with Olin, but he loses him, and he is cut adrift as a result of that. Who does he have? And that theme of found family that Gwynne does so well as anyone, along with the theme of friendship and animal companions. It all goes together so well because you have Drem finding his place. He is united with the Order of the Bright Star first, and he has this wonderful relationship with Cullen, and he has this wonderful relationship with Byrne, and we see this developing, and we see him with Friend. Right, I think that's a wonderful name for that bear, and
because he's his friend.
It's a perfect name for. I don't know. Maybe I'm sentimental, but I just love that, and how Drem begins to feel at home. He begins to, yes, he still has his ticks, and he checks his pulse, and he does all that, but he begins to feel meaning in what he's doing, and he begins to feel that he has a purpose and that he has a place and that he's found a home with these people, with the Order of the Bright Star, and that for me is where the real emotional impact comes from in this series, is Drem's development, his character. I did like Riv, and I was very sad about Bleda. Certain characters I just knew they were going to go, like Afra. She's a mother, so you knew she was, toast. Parents don't do so well.
It's like a Disney movie.
The Banished Lands, yeah. So I knew Afra was going to go. There were certain other characters, but I was a little surprised, I have to admit, by Bleda's demise and angry at how it happened. And so it was effectively done from my perspective. But the final battle, it was the way that this had to end. This is a great ending, appropriate, a great finish to this trilogy, and to, if Gwynne never comes back to the Banished Lands, I hope he does. But
he will.
It was a great way to, really what we have in Time of Courage is 3 major battles, right? You have 3, and the final one is the most epic of all, and it's really masterfully done. Gwynne is so good at combat; he's so good at action. I think I really enjoy, because of his he participates in all the reenactment stuff, so it really does add, I think, an appreciation for me when I get a sense of how tired your arm gets from holding up a shield, or I get a sense of the right grip on, the particular weapon, the seax that Drem has, for example, being more useful in certain combat situations than a longer sword. And that stuff like that, he doesn't go on and on about that sort of thing, but he works it in, and he works it in. So I really like that, and I think he does battles really, really well. He's just a great battle scene writer. So So I thought it was a very satisfying conclusion to the trilogy and to my time in the Banished Lands from the perspective of this battle, and the emotional resonance, especially with Drem's arc, was fantastic.
Yeah, John Gwynne does a very good job of laying a very subtle groundwork of anxiety, of fatigue, And what I mean by that is, you know, as someone who does like I do jiu-jitsu and I do striking every now and then, the number one thing that you don't realize about combat of any fashion is how tired you get, how fast that happens, and you feel like you're drowning. And there are times in John Gwynne's battle scenes where I feel like I'm drowning, and I get that same anxiety feeling that I do whenever I know I'm starting to gas out on the mats or in the ring, right? And I think that he does a very good job of playing into that reality, and it's probably because of the reenactment stuff that he does. I always say, you know, that's the first thing, that's the first hard truth you have to face whenever you engage someone in combat, is that you're probably not in as good a shape as you think.
Yeah.
But I'll open up anybody who wants to jump in about the last battle, maybe some of the moments in the last battle that you found to be really resonating with you, or just, you know, were fist pumping awesome.
I missed your whole sentence because there was an adorable baby on the screen.
Yeah.
I kept looking at him because he was banging on the door crying.
Alex, we want to know what your son thought of the last battle.
Yes.
What did you think of the last battle?
He says, "Bye-bye, Bleda."
This is basically how I felt watching Bleda go down. I was just like, he's still skunky waving. No, I mean,
Why is his hand? Why is the hand like that? Holding swords?
It's after the last battle, but like I did really like the way it ended where you have like Drem, Cullen, Riv all together at the end, and they're talking about, like, I was just looking at it for like friends and truth and courage, and them all coming together and going, we've had a hard time, but we're going to look forward, and just love each other and be friends and happy. And we're not happy, but like, I like the way it all wrapped up with those three.
Yeah, there's a quote, if I could jump in just to read it, because I think it embodies exactly what you just said, Abby. And it says, "We are born and we live, and then we die. It's what we do while we are here that counts. And if we can be called friend, then we are lucky indeed." Let's go. Oh my goodness.
And that's what separates Gwynne, right, from the grimdark. Even though he has the brutal battles and he has the character deaths,
There's too much hope.
There is too much hope, which is nice every once in a while.
I just mean in the book, guys, not just in general. I'm not like
Alex, you know, we can have a chat after the stream if you need to.
If Alan is Lycos, then Alex, I think we might have to call you a Revenant pretty soon.
Alex is gonna have like eyeliner on in his next video and like be reading dark poems.
Yeah, I mean, for me though, it's like I thought the battle, of course, was done well. Baby Nee's gone. My biggest issue, I guess, everything's cool and the battle's awesome. I'm glad that hopefully they're actually dead this time, because my biggest gripe coming into this trilogy, and I talked to Alan about it, I don't know if I mentioned it to anybody else before, was my biggest hope for this trilogy was he was not going to bring back Michael and Azeroth and have them fight again. And when they came back, I was just like, are we really just going to do this again? Which he kind of did. It was a little bit different. Obviously, the stakes are different. What's going on in the story is different. But, I mean, even at the end of this, though, they don't kill all of them. They kind of, like, shove them back through a hole. It's like, get out of here. So they could easily come back again, which hopefully they don't just somehow find a way back in through another ritual of somebody like, let's summon the Kadishim again. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. I know is Azeroth actually dead?
Azeroth is dead. Azeroth is dead, but there is his baby, right?
Because there's the baby.
Yeah.
So, like, he's clearly, that's why I said like it's open enough, because she gives the baby as like, go live somewhere and raise it. Like, I'm sure that's setting up like there's going to be a sequel again at some point if he wants to. I mean, he clearly left it open enough to do that, but hopefully if he does it a third time, they don't just bring back the Kadishim and have like the Benno and Kadishim fight again, because I feel like
I did find interesting
is that
within these all the 7 books in the Banished Lands is that we did meet Azeroth, but we never met Elrond.
Correct.
Yeah,
and that
somebody like
he's always been this figure. We always know that he is not a person, but like there. But we never he was never on the page. We never met him. We don't know what that he was actually like.
Elrond into the world, and then he'll be even worse.
Probably.
I think Alex, you
Probably.
raised an important point too about that ending where they didn't kill off all of the Katashim. And had they done so, it would have been a kind of like an ethnic cleansing or of the sort. You know, it might have made the heroes
kind of dark,
as evil as the villains, because why are they bad? Because they want to kill humanity, right? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go about killing every Katashim just because they're Katashim, does that make you any better? So I thought that was an interesting choice that Gwynne made, and he also has the Katashim half-breeds being incorporated into their society. They're making an attempt at reconciliation. So I thought that was also a very interesting choice, and I like that. If the Benalim are morally gray and complex, then why not the Katashim as well? And have some, if he ever goes back there again, it would be interesting to see half-breed Katashim, working alongside, the rest of the characters in that world, and having a positive relationship with some of them even. So yeah, I like that. I like that he stuck with the moral complexity.
I guess it brings in the whole nature nurture thing.
Yeah.
Like, is it in the Katashim's nature to be the way they are, or is it just the way that they've been raised? And that if they were raised in a more in the way of truth and courage and friendship and love, would they be the same way as all the characters that we come to love?
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you guys think we'll see like blacksmith Katashim in like 50 years? Where they're really etching out their spot at Dunseerin, like I don't know if I could see them like putting milk on the porch. I don't know.
They have wings.
It's
It's
a
a
far-
great delivery service.
It would be. It's like Amazon Prime, but
Exactly. They just created drones.
and if the Katashim are evil, so is Bezos. So it's like perfect if you think about it.
So what you're saying is this is all a parallel to how evil Amazon is as a corporation.
Amazon is.
Katashim are going to the moon. That is
It's a
actually
gigantic critique of Jeff Bezos.
That's the third trilogy. Banished Lands on the moon.
Elrond's actually on Mars, and you have to go. Elron Musk.
What the hell is this?
How do you call it an Elrond, first of all? Elrond is an elf from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Elion.
It's Elion.
Elion. Yeah, I like Elrond more.
Sorry if I added the extra R into the name.
Yeah, I just followed Abby.
Elion.
Abby, you led me astray. How dare you?
I thought, Abby, that was
You're an
How
inside
dare I
person.
forget the names of characters that I read like 9 months ago?
Yeah, how dare you? Fake
I thought it was
fan.
just your British accent, but yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh dear.
Mine's my West Virginia accent, so it kind of balances out. So we talked about blood. We talked about the final battle. Was there any other major moments that somebody was chomping at the bit to get to? Because I'll be honest with you, my memory is a little bit cloudy, seeing as it was a while ago that I read these. But I know that some of us have read it, more recently. Was there anything that stuck out to you, good or bad?
What about Jin and the dynamic between Jin and Bleda and the chase through the mountains and how he kept? I love it when Gwynne does a sort of a clever battle tactic, outwitting the superior enemy kind of thing. So he does that really well in a lot of battles. But I loved how Bleda increasingly became respected as kind of clever and cunning, and you had poor Jin, who was getting increasingly frustrated as he kept outwitting her. He had a little bit of luck there when the giants came along, and rescued him at that last moment. But you got to admire the fact that he just kept going until he was cornered. But he kept alive, not just through brute strength, but through cleverness. So that was kind of fun. And then, of course, they were going at each other in the battle as well, the final battle.
Yeah, I definitely hated Jin a lot.
Me too.
Jen was just annoying because she was so like one-track mind of just I'm gonna kill everything about Bleda. It's just like every scene was just like I need to kill Bleda. And
Bleda.
and his hybrid lover, and I'm gonna kill Bleda and his hybrid lover, and his hybrid lover and Bleda. I'm just like, okay, we're gonna kill them. Do something else with life, please.
I did feel the same way. So what Alex said about some of the villains not being as compelling or maybe being one note, I did find that it's Azeroth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did find him a bit like ridiculous at times. Like they made him almost cartoonish in some
Yeah.
scenes. For someone who's supposed to be evil incarnate, I did not feel afraid of him. Sometimes, yeah.
Please.
I
Let me
really
ask
like
you,
this book, and
was Gwynne actually going for a bit of comedy at times? I
Maybe,
actually thought that
There's a
for
little
example,
like fish out of water stuff with him for sure.
a little bit like with Wrath, the drag with the wings.
yes.
I thought he was kind of comical sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think that might even be with the cheese and everything else. With Azeroth, I think that Gwynne actually was going for a bit of comedy there. I think.
Yeah, I think it was intentional.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I remember seeing someone in Alex's Discord. I think it might have been Bach, but he was saying that he thought the dreg was kind of ridiculous. Like he couldn't stop laughing when he would read it. And I don't know if I commented back, but I was thinking like, yeah, I actually thought that was pretty funny. Like I thought that it was definitely a kind of like Pixar. You know what I mean? You have the evil villain, and they have like some animal companion that's like running into walls and messing up their plans. Like I don't know. I kind of got that vibe from it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah,
if Alan were here right now, he'd be doing a Wrath imitation, like Wrath hungry, you know.
We're really missing the voice acting contingent of this.
Yeah.
This
it's a
live
shame
stream.
Alan's such a hater and a fake fan, you know? Like
Yeah, I know.
hard.
I think he also loves Samwise Gamgee. Just
Oh, yeah.
living in
Zane.
Lord of the Rings again. He's his favorite character in fantasy.
Big Hobbit fan. Big Hobbit fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has Sam on his right pec, and his left pec he has Zane from Mistborn. It's actually like a
And
nice.
he has Lycos tethered from shoulder to shoulder on his back.
Yeah, he has a grappling
And
hook that goes
that-
down his spine.
Who was Alan's favorite character in Faithful and Fallen though? He was
He loved Cole. He was a big
Cole.
Cole fan.
no Faithful
Cool.
and Fallen.
Oh.
Not of Blood and
Oh.
Bone.
Lycos.
Yeah, like
What?
Jael.
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 I think he has a picture of his face somewhere tatted on him.
Yeah, he changed his middle name to Jael.
Oh,
Actually,
did he?
Yeah,
That's dedication right there.
he said
He
he
also
really.
hated, was it Rafe, the bully?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right
Oh,
there.
Rafe. I hate Rafe.
Rafe,
My friends are reading through it and
Rafe's the
messaging me
worm.
things that Rafe's doing, and I'm like, wow, I really did hate that. He's the worst. I feel like we've covered like most of the major moments. You know, I mean, obviously we could go on and on. There is one thing I really wanted to do today, and I kind of want to say, like, you know, what's next? Obviously, we have Shadow of the Gods and stuff, but like, if he were to return to the Banished Lands, in what fashion would you like to see him return? And maybe some changes that you'd like to see made. Feel free. Anybody
I
to
feel like you've talked. Maybe we've talked about him doing a like in between book.
Ooh, that'd be kind of
He did say that maybe he will do a standalone book between the Faithful and the Fallen and Of Blood and Bone, but just one book. Maybe.
Is it Corlin getting Kadashim
it's-
hides? Because that'd be cool.
It's. I think it's about Corbin. I think. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm always down for Corbin. I would be definitely
Yeah.
in.
I mean, if he did an in between, I'm sure you'd have to see like not necessarily the downfall, but like the later parts of all of the original cast lives that are still with us. There's not a whole lot of them, but
Yeah.
you know, it would probably have a very different feel. Like if it was just Corbin, Storm, and Corlin, like that would probably be a very different story than like a big epic, you know, Faithful and the Fallen.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it'd be more slice of life than.
Yes, this is what we need. Slice of life. Whoever's the bird keeper, let's just follow them. Let's just hang out with the crows for a little while.
Okay, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess this,
Craft POV for 900 pages.
I'd read it. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't. I think I'm almost feeling the opposite, which I don't know if we'll ever get. But with Shadow of the Gods, we now have some context of what he's working on next, right? But I mean, I kind of hope that one day we see another John Gwynne big epic with a ton of cast members, because one of the things that I really like about John Gwynne is that he is a very accessible writer. I feel pretty confident giving him to a lot of readers, and I felt like the challenges of his book were the amount of POVs and locations and the traveling going on in The Faithful and the Fallen, which you didn't necessarily get in A Blood and Bone. You know, I did like the cast, I like the plot, everything. Obviously, I think I gave them all 5 stars. But with that said, I do feel like that little bit of challenge. Like when I read something, I do like to be challenged just a bit. And I felt like him with the massive cast was just really well done. Like, it wasn't one of those things where I thought it was a detriment, and I wonder why he trimmed down the cast in the sequel trilogy. So if we return to the Banished Lands, I would love to see a little bit more, like just a bigger cast, go down those rabbit holes, because honestly, he's really good at it. Like, he's one of my favorite multi-POV writers. So the more the merrier, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah, maybe they're just different styles, because it was kind of, a continuation of that big epic thing that we just experienced. So it almost makes sense to trim it down a little bit. But then he's kind of doing the same thing in Bloodsworn, where it's three POVs.
It's
three or
3.
four.
Yeah.
Is it just Orca and the other two?
Yeah, it's
Orca, Elvar. Who's the
That's
other one? Yeah.
Varg.
Oh, my boy Varg.
But again, I mean, we've seen him book to book, fluctuate how many POVs you get and which POVs you get. So he could easily start small and, grow. So
that would actually be really interesting, because we always almost get an antagonist POV to start out book 2. That's kind of his thing, right? Now you're going to see the other side of things.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe we'll see like a real, usually it's a replacement as well, right? Maybe he has 1 or 2. I would love to see him just like get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I would love to see John Gwynne write a 5 or 6 book series. I think that would be really good. And I think that he's someone who can handle it, because he has the technique. I mean, he's very approachable, and he's just a fabulous writer. Every time I talk about these books with you guys, I just get all nostalgic, and I want to go back and reread The Faithful and the Fallen so much. It's such a grand series, and the Banished Lands as a whole, I think, is very important to all of us here. Even if we had varying opinions and stuff, we always come together, and I think we have good discussions. And it's really impressive when you get 6 or 7 people in a room together talking about one series, having varying opinions, and all come out smiling. So I think that this has been one of the better live discussions that I've had, to be honest with you. And doing this all with you guys has been just an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I would agree.
Agree. And we'll probably sync back up when it's Bloodsworn 2, whenever that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's next year, next April.
Yeah, and that's coming soon, guys.
And I do think I might be making this up, but I think John Gwynne has said that it is going to get bigger. That the Bloodsworn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that you're going to have more POVs, and it's going to the scope is going to get bigger in the Bloodsworn trilogy as you get to each book. I believe I heard that somewhere. Petra,
he probably told that to us when we talked to him, right? That or when we talked to Will and
Yeah,
I think he did say that. I think.
I was hoping John would be able to join us today, or that we'd be able to bring him in, so we could pick his brain. But he's a busy man.
Yeah,
busy man. So.
Yeah, I mean, not spoiling anything for that book if anyone hasn't read it. I'm pretty sure based on the way that last arc of that book ends, it's like it's about to open up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's a lot of questions in Shadow of the Gods. And of Blood and Bone, I didn't feel like we had too many more questions. At the end of book 1, I mean, obviously with Frithva and everything she's doing, like, well, what is going on? But we kind of have like a pretty good idea of where it's going, I think. Obviously trying to resurrect Azeroth and all these things. Where Faithful and the Fallen had a lot of questions going in. Even though we had the prophecy, it was very much like, how are we going to get there? But also, like, what are all these human pieces going to do and impact this? And who's going to do what? And obviously with Nethair, like, he didn't realize he was the bad guy. And there was a lot of really neat playing with prophecy in that.
Yeah.
With Shadow of the Gods, I mean, I really feel like the mystery's wide open. I have no idea where that story's going. Like, no idea.
The tone is so different, too, that you can't necessarily suppose the same type of ending that you could from Faithful and the Fallen, because like we all said, you had that undercurrent of friendship and truth and courage. And so you knew that even if it didn't work out well for everyone, it was still going to work out in some capacity. Yeah. But I don't get that sense in Shadow of the God. This is much bleaker, darker, grittier story.
Yeah, I could see Shadow of the Gods being a very big, there being like shifts of who is actually the main character, because the POVs are pretty balanced for the most part. So.
And will it be a tragedy instead?
I feel like there might be some switching of who's a POV character.
Yes.
Due to a death.
Yes.
I don't know who's going to die, but I feel like there's going to be some changes going along.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if Orca dies, we'll have to fly to John Gwynn's house. And
I'll just get on the train.
All right, I'll send a message to you to carry to him.
Yeah.
So go yell at him.
You're gonna have to represent us, Abby.
Okay.
Well, this has been
I
this
think-
has been wonderful. Patrick, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, I think for the Shadow of the Gods, I have a feeling. I don't know. This is just my feeling that I think the death count by the end will be even larger somehow because the way I see it is this. This is it's inspired by Ragnarok, right?
Mhm.
And the way the Shadow of the Gods operates is kind of like what happened after Ragnarok, and then now it seems like it's going to lead into another Ragnarok. I think that's how I see it. Yeah, that's how I see it. I mean, John Gwynne is kind of inspired by God of War too, the video game. So God of War seems to be leading towards that story direction as well. So that's kind of like my prediction right now for the Shadow of the Gods.
I like looking at Philip's face because he has all of this experience with the Norse mythology, with how all of these stories play out, and he's just like, you guys have no idea.
Yeah, Philip already knows. He's being consulted.
Well, I will say that the Bloodsworn trilogy so far does remind me so much of reading Icelandic sagas and Norse mythology, and that's of course deliberate on Gwyn's part. And the vast majority of Icelandic sagas do not end happily; they are tragic.
Good to know. Good to know.
They are not warm and fuzzy reads, everybody. So
Yeah.
I do think that we can expect that bleak tone to persist, probably. Yeah.
Well, that's
I
exciting.
will have to like put some bandages on my heart then, I think.
Yeah, I think John Gwynne's just one of those writers. I think we can all agree that anytime he publishes a book, it's like you got to get it immediately. Like you got to have it, and I think that is a one of the highest attestments you can give to an author's ability. So,
For sure.
excellent. Well, this is the Order of the Bright Star signing off today. It's been a pleasure to do this with you all. I appreciate being invited and being considered to be a part of this group. And I was very privileged to host this today and to get up early with my sushi tummy ache and have everybody on. I think I love hearing every single one of your perspectives. I'm glad that Alan couldn't make it today, and I'm only
Did I
kidding.
hear you right?
I'm only kidding. We love Alan. We wish he could have been here, but on free StreamYard, I couldn't have fit him in here anyways. So
He's too busy taping his Empire of the Vampire reading vlog. That's why he hasn't read any other books this month, because that one's so long.
he's enthralled. He's enthralled. But I
Well,
look forward.
We miss you, Alan, and
Yeah.
thank you, Jimmy, for hosting. You're awesome. You're a great host. And to everybody, thank you so much for being part of my Banished Lands journey. It's been so much fun talking to you guys about all these books. It's just been, you've enriched my appreciation so much. So my thanks to all of you.
Yeah, and the same from me as well. It has really been a blast. I mean, like a few years ago, I have no one to talk to about these books. Now I have so many people to talk about them, and yeah, it's been amazing to do this for all of these books. Right, we've done all 8 books, right? The 7 books and Shadow of the Gods. So yeah, it's been amazing, and yeah, there will be more in the future for Hunger. The second book, Hunger of the Gods.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and thanks to Patrick for bringing this series to so many people's attention from the very beginning. So long you've been reading these.
It's been fun.
Patrick is definitely not a fake fan. He is not a hater.
He's the anti-Alan, is what you're saying.
The anti-Alan. I love that. Everyone that's checking this out, if you're not subscribed to these wonderful people, make sure to go down the description. I have all their channels tagged there. You can just click on their name and it'll take you there. And then the previous 2 chats, if you're curious, are actually in the description as well. If you want to go check those out, we had one on Alex's channel and one on the Trader Alan's channel as well. And they were both really wonderful times. And I hope that if you're watching this in the future and you didn't catch it live, I hope that you enjoyed this. And for everyone that was here today, thank you. Thank you so much for showing up early. For some of you, I know it's a perfect time period. So I'm glad to be able to kind of branch out and get more people overseas at a more reasonable time, like Patrick right here, right? So, excellent. As far as Fantasy Network type of things, I will be having a full series Dark Tower spoiler discussion this Wednesday that I haven't announced. So this is the first time. Sarah will be here, as well as Your Brain on Books, which feature his name is Baron. And if you're a Fantasy Network fan and a Dark Tower fan, that's going to be a lot of fun here Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. So for everyone here, thank you guys for being here and giving me your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for the conversation. I love the community, and I love John Gwynne, and I love you all. So
Right back at you.
Right back at you.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Be good, be safe.
Bye-bye.
Remember to always keep turning the page.
Yeah. Bye.